So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Dan, I'll go ahead and ask you I know we have a change in one of our members, and maybe we can address that to start with before we get into the other agenda items.
Learned by Curtis Lewick that he will no longer be participating in the TMC or TMC Policy Subcommittee. With that, Bill has volunteered to join for both, and Mike Ortega has recommended his appointment, and Jan Lesher has confirmed his appointment. So if appropriate, Bill, if you're on, and Mr. Chair, Bill would be able to participate today as a voting member.
Bill is on. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Bill.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill, and welcome to the Policy Subcommittee. Happy to have you participating. All right, well then let's move on to item number 2 on the agenda, review of RTA Administrative Code and Policies, Objectives and Procedures. And Dan, I'll turn it over to you and staff there to set the stage and lead us through the discussion.
And staff and I, we are prepared to dig into the project descriptions of the admin code, which you all have reviewed and provided comments to. First, I did want to take the opportunity, Mr. Vice Chair, Paul had provided some comments. I'm not sure if we wanted to dig into that now or after we get into the project descriptions.
Dan, I would say let's start with project descriptions, and then we can move into the administrative code and other policy objectives and procedures.
Great. All right. With that, I can turn it over to Jim, and we could pull up the project descriptions on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have emailed out to everybody kind of a comprehensive list of policy or rather of project descriptions. Let me see if I can pull it up here. And should be seeing this now. Starting out with our initial projects, we reviewed the Tangerine, or we have the Tangerine project. We have the 2006 plan projects are identified by their original project number. So it's 2006-01, as Tangerine Road was the first project on in the original 2006 plan. We have made some modifications to the description to correspond to the current scoping or current scope of work that we've identified for the project. We've identified project funding, implementation period, and benefits. I know Fausto had commented on them. We've incorporated his comments. So are there any questions, concerns about the Tangerine Road project? Well, first, Mr. Chair, would you like to go through these individually? Or would you like to approach this more collectively?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Jim. Let me query the members. How detailed do you want to go through each of these items? Do you want Jim to highlight maybe notable changes or areas that are thematic, right? I know that there was some work being done to promote consistency in how we described certain aspects, whether they related to, bike ped improvements or multi-use paths or the widening of the roadway itself. So what's the pleasure of the subcommittee? Do you want to go through each of these, or do you want to just get a highlight summary from Jim as to the key themes?
Mr. Chair, I'll chime in here. I think that we should at least pause on each project and kind of just get a an overview, if there's something that changed or something that Jim wants to highlight. I mean, I don't think Jim needs to read every single one word for word, but let's just go kind of project by project and try to hit the highlights. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to say, that was the same comment I had as Mr. Credio, that we do just what Jim did with Tangerine, just a very high level quickly. And then if there's questions, we can do that.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Paul. We'll go ahead and proceed that way, Jim. So if you would go to the next one, we'd appreciate it.
Just before we moved on, one thing that I might pose is that with the project descriptions and that first paragraph for the scope, it may be in our interest to align that description with the final RTA plan description. It isn't 100% aligned for all these projects. We haven't gone through that effort to make sure that they are 100%. But with that, if that is acceptable, we could take any details from that scope description and move it down so that we're still capturing that appropriately, but not misaligning those descriptions with what's within the approved RTA Next plan.
Could you maybe go back on Tangerine then and give us a highlight of what that might look like, right? It sounds reasonable, what you've suggested. What I want to ensure is that, we understand what adjustments may be made, the nature of adjustments that may be made to align it with what's in the original description.
Mr. Chair, one of the things that we will be doing and that our communications team is currently working on is doing final proofing and editing of call it the framework that will be what will be presented to the voters as a part of the voter pamphlet. So that information, we're wanting to make sure that we're absolutely concurrent word for word with that first caption on the ballot materials. So what you would see, what's shown on the screen here, the highlighted portion, Project 2006-01, Tangerine Road, this would be word for word how it would appear on the ballot. We are still in the process of editing it, so there may still be some changes that we have to implement on, albeit they will be minor, but we want to make sure that they're absolutely correct.
And with that, I did pull up the plan, and for this one, as an example, the description after the name is correct on this one, but the description says completion of widening 4-lane Desert Parkway with bike lanes, drainage, and turn lanes. And so perhaps that could be the initial scope, and then we could take what we have, that first paragraph just below that as an example to detail that out a little bit more. Any thoughts on that?
Bill, I think your hand was up before mine.
My comment was not relative to this, and I'm sorry because I'm the new guy and I haven't been involved in the previous meetings. I'm just looking for a little bit of input into what are you looking for out of us as we go through these?
And I think from staff's perspective, we want to make sure that we are not the originators of these projects. We want to make sure that we're capturing correctly what the jurisdiction's intent is with the project. We've got very high level descriptions, but if there are things that we need to make sure that we're including or specifically not including, we want to make sure that we're properly representing the project. So that's primarily what we're trying to achieve with this is getting it right.
Thanks, Jim. I've got a couple of hands up. Let me go to Paul, and then I'll go to Beth after.
So I look at this as the bare minimum for the project descriptions. So we have two sets of projects. We have projects that are the rollover projects, and then we have the projects that are the new projects. This level, I think, is probably okay for the new projects. But for the rollover projects, again, to try to get ahead of the scrutiny that we're going to be fighting, swimming upstream against, if there's a way to be able to talk about scope changes, why this has gone from RTA 1 to RTA next, kind of that logical progression. We weren't able to do it in RTA 1 because we had to expand the scope into this, and it's going to cost this additional amount. Um, that's very descriptive on the rollovers. And then as far as tying this to the ballot language, I look at this as the opportunity to be able to be very, very descriptive, because I think the key to the success of the plan moving into the future is going to be, you know, what's the current budget encompass? What's the current budget take? And then later on, if things need to be modified or expanded, or you have a very descriptive uh, um, scope of work that can be measured. And is this a local improvement, or is it just, we couldn't anticipate this 10 years ago when we passed the plan and it needs to be incorporated now. And then that opportunity goes to the board for the board to say, okay, well, we need to increase the budget for this if the money is there. So that's why I'm thinking that this is a key, and whether it lives in the administrative code or goes into a different document. Um, this is the bare minimum. Um, and I don't know if there's, for each sponsor, if they have more, you know, more they want to. I would say this was pretty vanilla, so probably not. Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that input. Beth?
So yeah, so part of my question was similar to Paul's. It's actually kind of a two-part question is, where's this language going to live? I appreciate that the ballot language itself has to be a little bit more succinct, and that we do kind of want to capture the intent. But again, where does this live? But then I also, a little bit kind of counter to Paul's point, is I want to maybe caution about getting too detailed and really more focusing on capturing the intent. Like an example here with the Tangerine Road one, about multi-use path adjacent to the roadway. Well, what if we find that in one area of, that there's existing utilities, that it maybe makes sense to go around those, and we have to put the multi-use path 30 feet away from the road, and now somebody cries foul because it's not adjacent to the road anymore. So just kind of being cognizant of those things, that we don't find ourselves having to make, scope changes, and I'm kind of air quoting scope changes every time, that if we've gotten too detailed in that language. So those were just kind of like my only comments here. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Beth. Paul, I see your hand.
Yeah.
Up.
So Beth makes a good point. I don't want it to be chokingly restrictive. So if it has no cost implications, then I think it's a non-issue. But Beth, I think you brought up a really good point. What if you have to move it out 30 feet and now you have to do some type of right-of-way acquisition that's going to end up costing a lot of money? That might be where that line is drawn.
Well, yeah, and Paul, but to your point though, is that I don't want to have to do like some sort of scope change to save money. Like, hey, there's the existing utility in the way, and we can move it out 30 feet. And even if there's a right-of-way acquisition, it's less expensive than relocating the utility. But because we said adjacent, now we have to, go through all these hoops to save money. So, but I appreciate your point on like, yes, if it's something that is going to cause an increase, like I'm more concerned about, hey, making sure everybody's bought into it, as opposed to, hey, we found a way to save some money. But now we're, because we were so, restrictive in our description, that to save money, we have to jump through all these hoops that almost makes it not worthwhile to try to save the money.
I get it. And I think it's, you bring up a really good point, and maybe we can cover this in the policies with regard to if a change requires an increase in funds, then that's where that's where the conversation will start at the TMC and then go to the board.
No, I appreciate that discussion. I hear two themes, right? One is where does the language we're looking at live? And then also the level of specificity. And maybe before we have staff address that a little bit further, I see Fausto has a hand up. So let me go to Fausto.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Bring up some good points, Paul and Bev. Now that I read this again, I think adjacent to roadway, we just eliminate that and just leave it at a multi-use path. So for this particular one, the intent was just say there's already bike lanes within the road, trying to say there's another piece of infrastructure, but outside of the roadway, but I just think we just eliminate that last portion. It gives it, now it's an open-ended, it's not a fixed, it's gonna be right here. But
Great, thanks, Fausto, for that input. And so, staff, can you help us all understand where the language we're looking at is going to reside and how it ties then to either the ballot language or the administrative code? You heard a suggestion saying, okay, the variability of how we may handle things could be reflected in the administrative code. And we touched on that a little bit at our last meeting when we were talking about the policies. But if you can frame it out for us so that we understand what are we going to do with what we're looking at right here, and then how does it relate to the other parts and pieces, the ballot language and the administrative code or the policies?
Let me take a stab at this, and my colleagues may have some other things they want to suggest as well. But a couple of thoughts. First, I think what we're looking at is an incremental refinement of the scope over and above what's in the ballot language as a part of the administrative code in the project section. We mostly want to identify what the elements are, the key elements. We don't want to be too tied down in terms of location, things like that, because we know that as the project evolves, we're going to need to have some latitude to move things around. But if we're going to have a multi-use path, let's say it. It's not necessarily going to be in the ballot language. It might say bike improvements, pedestrian improvements, and more generic. If we're going to do that, though, we should probably put it into the administrative code in the projects section. Couple of other thoughts. I know initially, Paul, you raised the question of how we got here with and some of the detail behind why the 2006 plan projects are in this. I think that would live in the history section, which would precede. We'll start out with purpose and history in the administrative code, much like the current code is structured. We'd add to it. Add to that history, probably truncate some of the detail that was associated with the development of the initial 2006 plan, focus more on the development of the 2026 plan, and then but that's not even going to be complete at the time we finish with this, because we'll still have the adoption process. So ultimately, we'd need to amend it again to include that after the election occurs, presuming it's a favorable election. I think that there is language that we need to put into either the POPs or even a new section that's even more definitive that speaks to the financial management. We need to identify financial or project health evaluation over time. We need to look at how we deal with inflation over time. All of these are pretty specific things that we still need to work through here, and that's a section that either will live as a part of the POPs or as a separate financial section that's built out of whole cloth.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim on that discussion and explanation about the relationships of the different items? Fausto, I see your hands up. I don't know if that's new or if that was from your prior. There we go.
Yeah,
all right.
Sorry about that.
Real good. Okay, so I think we heard from Fausto on this one, drop adjacent to the roadway from that scope description. And then why don't we move on to the next one? And, we may have refining questions that come up as we go along.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to 2006 or 05, the Silver Bell Road, El Camino del Cerro to Ina Road, the final phase. What we have identified is it as a 4-lane divided roadway from El Camino del Cerro to Ina. And we cite the previously approved scope, which was in the original ballot language, it was a 3- and 4-lane divided desert parkway. And if you were to go into the administrative code, previously, it would have said that it was 3 lanes north of El Camino del Cerro. So that gives you an idea of how it gets more refined with the administrative code over what was in the ballot. So we have identified that it would have 100-year culverts, 100-year peak discharge under the road, and that there would be wildlife fencing, jump out, and crossing improvements. One thing I want to do is I do want to ask about jump outs. If that's a pretty specific thing, we could delete jump out. I think we also had jump out in the Tangerine Road project. That may be something that is so specific that we want to delete it. Just say wildlife fencing and crossing improvements, and I think that would be broad enough that we could still do jump outs if we found that they were needed.
Thank you, Jim. So I know this is a small portion, city of Tucson, and then primarily the county and Marana. Any comments from those jurisdictions and any input from the overall group about use of jump out? I don't know that that's a term that the public would generally be familiar with. So I would recommend we tend to avoid jargon or terms of art myself, but would welcome any thoughts from the group.
I was going to ask what a jump out is because I honestly don't know what a jump out is. So I agree with you, Carmine.
Well, Chairman, I agree as well.
Okay, well, very good. And just for definitional purposes, a jump out is a raised, an opportunity for wildlife that finds itself trapped within a fenced roadway, where you basically build up to close to the top of the fence with an earthen or approach, if you will, so the wildlife can climb up there, jump over the fence readily, and then be off on the other side of the road. So something that you'll see on Oracle Road. It was a feature that was put in on the Oracle Road wildlife crossing. So I know that our colleagues and friends in the wildlife arena are very aware of this term, and it has specific meaning to them. I don't think it needs to be that specific, so I would recommend that we delete it.
Jim, it sounds, from the discussion, right, the description, it's a ramp. So, and, maybe we replace, if we think that it speaks to the community that's most interested in, the wildlife elements associated with these projects, and we can say wildlife fencing ramps or ramp and crossing improvements. Or take it out altogether.
At your pleasure.
Maybe with trap mitigation.
I'm leaning towards taking it out. I think ramp will add some ambiguity. The people that are reading this know what a jump out is, but I think if we leave that out, it's kind of a ancillary to the wildlife fencing. So I think we can take it out.
Could you just say wildlife fencing and associated improvements or something like that? I mean, it sounds like it's just part of the wildlife fencing design.
I think crossing improvements covers everything pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's a consensus, I'll move forward with it. Okay, and I'll make the same adjustment to project 2006-01 Tangerine Road.
There might also be a place to cover that when we get into, like the standard details. You don't have to say it for every project, but when you get into the standard details, what details are being utilized for the wildlife fencing and those elements contained within.
Okay. All right, very good. Shall we move on to First Avenue, Grant Road to River Road? Basically reconstruct North First Avenue as a 4-lane divided roadway from Grant to River Road, bicycle, pedestrian, and associated intersection and drainage improvements, and the previous scope, which was 6 lanes. This also includes language to reconstruct and/or modernize the First Avenue Bridge over the Rito Creek. That gives us the option to go either way depending upon the final bridge analysis.
See Paul's hand up.
And maybe this is just not for this particular project, but maybe much like the wildlife crossings or the wildlife fencing, when we say modernize, we need to define what modernize means. Is bike lanes, hover cars, what does that, what are those elements included in that? And not in the projects, but just someplace else in the code.
Definitely hover cars, Paul.
Okay. I'm a Jetsons fan.
Yeah. I was going to just chime in here. I think maybe Patrick could provide a little context. And I'm glad you asked the question, Paul, because many of the city's projects involve modernizing. And you're right, that can mean something different to everyone. Patrick, I don't know if you want to offer a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. The intent here was really to follow kind of what ADOT, the schema ADOT had developed a couple of years ago. I think it was capacity modernization for preservation maintenance. And the modernization is enhancing the corridor to meet our current design standards without necessarily adding additional vehicular capacity or additional travel lanes. So it would be doing all the things that we'd typically do on a major corridor project: drainage, sidewalks, landscaping, pavement rehab, without adding that additional capacity with the associated right-of-way impacts.
And so, Patrick, with the bridge there, I see you've got reconstruct and/or modernize. You want to describe what that would look like for the bridge itself?
Yeah, and actually what we've got scoped right now is a full replacement, and it's at the end of its useful life. I don't know if we want to, I guess the flexibility is nice, but if we want to go a little narrower to describe what we're actually designing, might be beneficial.
Thanks, Patrick.
So let me go, a couple of folks have hands up and then we can, circle back to resolve. I'm going to go to Mike Ortega and then Jason, you're up next.
Thanks, Carm. I appreciate it. Just out of curiosity, and Jim, maybe you can answer this. Why are we including previously approved scope language there?
Mr. Chair, Mike, we had put that in there. I believe that's also in the framework on the ballot material as well, if I recall. So in our efforts to try to be concurrent or have concurrency between at least the initial portion of the caption and the scope with the ballot language, that's why that's in there. Yeah, that in general information.
I understand, Mr. Chair. I guess what I'm wondering, I understand the reason for on the ballot needs to be there because we're doing both. We're asking for the rescoping of the project, approval of the project and the rescoping. But for this purpose, I'm just wondering if that's necessary, since this is more of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of how we're going to get things done. So I just throw that out. I'm not jumping up and down about it. I just thought might be important. The other piece is back to Paul's point. I would challenge the term modernize a little bit. I think there would be value in defining that. Now, if somehow we defined it somewhere else in the document, but modernize also means current standards, that kind of stuff. So if something does not meet a current standard, that could be a definition. But I do think we should probably try to define that somewhere if we're not going to define that on each project. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering about the bridge. Would the bridge be designed as a 4-lane cross section, or is there an opportunity to build it out to a 6-lane, or maybe even design it such that it can be widened to a 6-lane configuration in the future? That'd be my question.
Go to Sam or Patrick.
Thanks for the comment. We're currently designing it as a 4-lane. That's what the traffic projections on the corridor have shown. The footprint is such that maybe there's some flexibility there, since there will be some median spacing as well as some shared use paths on each side. But as of right now, the structure is going forward as 4 lanes.
Okay. So there are a couple of topics wrapped in there, questions we should maybe pause on and decide. So the ask about whether the previously approved scope is reflected here. So what I heard is that it will be reflected on the ballot language. Does it also get reflected here, or is this a description of the project that would be built upon approval by the voters? Patrick?
Thank you, Carmine. Just a general thought. I'm wondering if to build in some flexibility, and I don't know if it's in these projects descriptions specifically or elsewhere, but maybe we have some language about, projects should be advanced under the jurisdictional guidelines or standards in effect at the time as the project moves. We're dynamic agencies. In 15, 20 years, we may have some different design philosophies and priorities that aren't getting captured here, and I think we should account for that. Well, making sure we're listing the key design elements that we're driving our cost estimates.
Okay. Patrick, was that relative to the discussion about how to define modernization?
I think it could be part of that conversation, but it's just a general comment about making sure that we've got some flexibility in these project descriptions.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, okay, you can hear me now. So, and I guess to your first question is whether or not we should include that language about previously approved scope. I mean, I think for this document, it's probably not necessary. This document is, how are we going to build it? What are we going to build? What are the benefits of it? When are we going to build it? I don't know if it's relevant. I'm sure it's going to be captured somewhere else. That's my 2 cents. And then I want to piggyback on the modernized comment. I think that, again, because of what this document is, rather than just say modernize, let's just say what it is we're going to do. Rather than use, just sort of a catch-all term. If we say reconstruct and or, add sidewalks, lighting, whatever, let's just say that. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Any other thoughts from others on those 2 items, removing from this document the previous scope and either defining modernize somewhere or replacing it with what we're actually considering doing?
Sorry, I do not have a hand raising option. Just as one thought when it comes to defining modernization or any other term, there is a section within the admin code, section H, for definitions. So if we did want to identify any new definitions such as modernization, we could in that section.
Okay. Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, I think I'm more in agreement with Sam. I didn't want to pick on this particular project all on its own, but yeah, it's an amorphous term, and maybe modernize is different project to project and might not be able to be definable that way. And list those elements, those major cost elements that are part. So again, we've got a recordation and we've got a plan forward, that if it needs other things that are not anticipated now, and they cost more, that they are addressed at some later date, for their individual merits.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I think we've captured a note that we need to address cost changes, right, somewhere in the POPs or the administrative code. So that has been noted in, the early conversations we've had here. So we'll make sure to follow that theme. I've got two other hands up. John, I think you went up first, and then we'll go to Beth.
Yeah, thanks, Carmine. We've got the word reconstruct in there, and I would hope we're reconstructing to modern standards. So I think modernize is redundant. I would just say reconstruct and or replace. That's all we're going to do to a bridge.
Thanks, John. Beth?
So yeah, I kind of agree across the board on taking modernize out everywhere and just putting what we're doing to the point that modernize might be different. But I also want to capture that something that Patrick had said that probably should be, part of the policy document, that we should include that we have to build these to whatever the best practice or kind of mandated requirement is at that time. Who knows, in 15 years, we might be, mandated to add that hover car infrastructure for Sam into, what we're building when we reconstruct a road, and it's something we're not thinking of right now that would add maybe significant cost. So kind of capturing that we're not building to the 2025 standards, that we're going to build to the requirements that are in place when the project gets built.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate that. So I think on the two topics we were just touching on, sounds like everyone is okay with removing from this document the previously approved scope so that it would be focused on what the project is going forward, with the understanding that the ballot language or elsewhere in the documents would be reflected what the prior scope is. And then it sounds pretty uniform that we remove the word modernize and that we replace it with a description of what the alternative would be, right? If it's a replace or reconstruct or something else. I mean, John, you made a good point saying you're doing one of two things. You're either replacing it or you're reconstructing it, to some modern standard, right? The idea being reflected there. So, Jim, I would ask you, based on the conversation that's happened here, do you have enough guidance to get back with the individual jurisdictions where modernize is reflected and further adjust the language?
I appreciate, and I think Mr. Bernal kind of hit it on the head. If we're reconstructing to current contemporary standards. So I'm comfortable with that. And so what I've got is striking from all of these 2006 projects the previously approved scopes. Avoid or replace the term modernize, and make sure that it includes the word substitute. One question that I do have that as we're going through this, it occurs to me we probably want to give some definition to is whether or not there's going to be street lighting or any specialized pedestrian crossings. I believe that was in the plan for First Avenue. That's not currently listed. Is that something I should add? And I'll yield to, or I would ask the city to weigh in on that.
Yeah, Jim, I think we can get you some language on that.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
With that, shall we move on to the next project?
Yes, Jim, thanks.
Okay. Okay, we're moving on to Grant Road, Fremont Avenue to Sparkman Boulevard. That's the final phase. There isn't a previously approved scope because it's the same scope. And what it is the completion of the widening to It says an 8-lane arterial. I believe that's supposed to be a 6-lane arterial. I
That's
don't know.
supposed to be 6, Jim. We're definitely
Okay.
not building 8 lanes.
No, I was going to say, I'm having
You almost gave me a heart attack
visions of
there.
Broadway again. So yeah, we'll change that to 6. Let's see, bike lanes, streetscaping, sidewalk. I'm assuming that we also have, we would want to add street lighting to this as well. We have the funding identified as 36.665 million in project funding, and then an additional 36,344, which is of other funding currently in the tip, or it will be in the tip. And I think that, well, I won't go into any more detail. Do you see anything that we need to look at changing on that other than 8 lanes?
Sam, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Jim, I'm just curious, why wouldn't we just copy some of the scope from the original administrative code if there's no change in the scope?
That's a very good question. I thought we had started with that, but I'll go back and see what something changed along the way. That's for sure. We'll go and compare that to the original scope that was in the plan.
And we'll take a look at that language too. I don't think there's anything problematic in there.
And add the street lighting.
I mean, that's why I was asking. Everything is already. I mean, it talks about continuous street lighting, drainage improvements, ADA accessible sidewalks. Yeah, I would defer to the original scope.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'm going to move on to the next one. 22nd Street, I-10 to Keno Parkway, modified scope. And again, we'll take out the previously approved scope, which was 6 lanes. We're now looking at a 4-lane divided roadway from I-10 to Keno Parkway with bike, pedestrian, associated drainage and intersection improvements, and a grade separation at the railroad tracks. This does not specify whether it's under or over. Gives you flexibility to go either way on that. And then that it connects to the other phases and is on a corridor that has other improvements on it. And I will look at the original scope as well to see if there was anything in it that we should add. And I'm assuming street lighting and pedestrian crossings are on that one as well.
Jim, can you help me understand why we talk about it connecting to a project all the way at 22nd, Camino Seco and Houghton? I don't understand that connection. Those two are so far away from one another.
Actually, I believe that likely was the language in the original code. So for the most part, we started out with the original code on these projects. So I believe that was in the original 2006 administrative code.
Okay.
But happy to delete that paragraph in its entirety if it's not something people feel strongly about. Or
it's just odd, and I think what that paragraph's trying to infer is that we have X amount of lanes all the way west, I think, or I'm sorry, all the way east. But it goes between 6 and it goes from 6 to 4 lanes as you head east, and it's going to go from 6 to 4 lanes as you head west. I don't understand the relevance. That's my only thought, and we can maybe beat it up offline, Jim.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. And I think the reason it was probably in the original language was because at the time, there was a real focus on corridors, key corridors of movement in the original 2006 plan. That's probably what was in there, but I don't have a problem with deleting it.
Okay. Paul, you had your hand up and then it went down. You good?
Oops. No, I just wanted to, Jim, you had mentioned pedestrian crossings, adding that to the language. I would say that pedestrian and associated drainage improvements probably captures all the normal stuff. I would add that if you did something special, like maybe a bridge over, like the one over 22nd Street, for pedestrians, something that's special and expensive, then maybe those should be identified individually in the description. But if it's just standard crossings, I would say it's probably covered under just pedestrian improvements.
Okay, understood. Only reason I called that out was because I believe this is a high-intensity pedestrian corridor where there have been a lot of issues, and the city has put some emphasis on trying to improve safety in this area. That's the only reason I call it to light on this one.
Oh, understood.
Okay.
Move on, Jim.
All right, very good. Houghton Road, final phase. Again, looking at a previous scope, we're now looking at 2 to 4 lanes with bicycle, pedestrian, and associated intersection and drainage improvements. This goes from Broadway Boulevard to Tanque Verde Road, and we know that there are existing bridges that we leave open. The question about whether or not we need to do anything to those bridges. So I believe there's that's something that we could handle as potential improvements rather than tying ourselves to either not doing them or doing them.
I see Sam's hand up, and then we'll go to Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, maybe put a finer point on what you just said, Jim. There are 2 bridges there, both of which I believe Pima County owns, that we'd like to avoid having to replace and widen. And so, and we know that at Broadway it's 4 lanes, and it's it necks down to 2 lanes. And we've done a feasibility study that indicates we don't need to widen to 4 lanes all the way to Tanque Verde. But we do need to do some intersection improvements. So I don't know if we need to specifically spell out in here that we don't plan on reconstructing those bridges as part of this project, or leave that flexibility for the future. But this is a phase 1 or period 1 project. As of right now, we're not proposing reconstructing those bridges.
Paul?
Yeah, my comment just piggybacks on what Sam just said. I think this is an example of where we need to expand the description a little bit. It adds some clarity here, the clarity that Sam just offered. We're not going to be reconstructing the bridges, but we have 2 lanes here, we have 4 lanes here, something like that. This just seems a little light on the description.
Perhaps what we could do is put in some language to say existing bridges will be evaluated for required modifications, and just leave it open on that end as to whether there's anything that's needed or not.
Yeah, I think working on some expanded language here to bring greater clarity. And so the last thing we want to do is have unmet expectations going forward. If we know something, and Jim, maybe it's saying, right, that does not include, reconstruction of existing bridges unless warranted through further study. Something to that effect, starting with where we believe we want to be, and then leaving some flexibility to it if needed, but seeing some language on that. And I think just in general, Jim, when we see modifications to this particular document next time, having it in track changes so that we can pick up quickly on the changes that have been made since we had this conversation.
What I've tentatively written down is existing bridges at Agua Caliente and Tanque Verde Creek will be evaluated for any needed improvements. You'll see that in track changes when we come back and revisit that.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was the last of the 2006 projects. Sonoran Corridor. This is a new description. We did include some edits And we have been looking at the revisions to the benefits as well. So any thoughts or concerns, questions on this description? I know there was some back and forth about project funding and non-RTA funding, and we have included both the $5 million of project or RTA funding and the $5 million of non-RTA funding. We did not specify what the source would be. I know there were comments about trying to use 2.6 funds on that, but this leaves it open.
Okay. Sounds like no comments on that. Jim, before we move forward, the county has a First Avenue project that's a carryover, and so where is that reflect?
Did I skip it? I am guessing we have a.
I thought there were
a need to add one. I'm sorry. I did not note that being missing. We will add that. What I will do, Carmine, is get directly with Catherine on that if you're okay with that, and we'll come back with an additional one for I believe it would be 2006-13 is I believe the project number.
I think that's 14. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, my apologies for missing that.
I thought there were 15
no worries.
projects that were being rolled over.
Say that again, Paul.
I thought there were about 15 projects being rolled over, 12 to 15 projects.
There are projects that are being rolled over funding-wise that are fully funded. Where we had what we wanted to do is identify projects that had significant gaps in funding from, basically costs that had gone well above the original plan amount, such as I know that Grant Road and Tanker Verde both were seeking substantial increases in funding. Those were identified along with the scope change projects, and between those projects or amongst those projects, we're able to fully fund the gap funding needed. So that was the reason for inclusion of those projects.
If I might suggest, so we have a lot of projects from RTA 1 that are moving into RTA next, so to speak, that don't have a scope change. But I thought, and maybe I'm mistaken on this, I thought the board's pleasure on this was to knock out those RTA 1 projects first and then roll into the RTA next projects. Am I not recalling that correctly? So that would have an impact on the cash flow. It would also have an impact on which period the new projects would start. And again, trying to minimize, whatever financing that we have to do and its associated costs.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Kiesler, you're absolutely right. There is a prioritization on completing the existing plan projects, and we have funding in hand to do most of them, either between the funds that have been pledged through the TIP or through accumulated RTA funds. So, we will remain laser focused on getting those finished. And in fact, the city of Tucson has very few phase 1 projects in the RTA next plan as they are working through the delivery of the 2006 plan.
Okay.
Jim, if you want to, proceed and just, timing wise, want to keep us at about 2 hours. We started at 9, so, we're nearly an hour in and want to get you feedback, Jim, on and team on what you need for these project descriptions.
Noted, and I will pick up the pace. Okay, Moore Road I-10 traffic interchange. This is a new TI. This was a request of the town of Marana. Fausto, do we catch the changes that you had requested correctly?
Yeah, I'm reading through it real quick, double check. Yeah, it appears to capture everything.
Okay, well, if you see anything else, let us know, and we'll keep working on it, but we'll move on to the next one. Lambert Lane. Now, this was one, Mr. Kiesler had identified some red lines I saw that were not incorporated. I have added them into this in the materials that you had sent out. They're not in there. I have highlighted in yellow some specific language that Mr. Kiesler had added. I know it's important to have that in there, and so we have added that. The one thing that I did not change was language relating to how we were describing bike lanes. I know you had identified some language about bike lanes, multi-use paths adjacent to pavement. It was very specific language. I took the liberty of just making it bike lane or shoulder, or bike lane / shoulder and multi-use path.
I'm okay with that, with that, trying to work the language into something uniform with everybody else. I still have that whole MUTCD issue on bike lanes, but we had a long discussion on that last time.
Okay. Thank you. And we can definitely, the more we can use open and kind of language that gives you flexibility, I think the better we'll all be served.
And perhaps we can put bike lanes as a definition in the definition section, so that there's the flexibility, and it doesn't create the expectation, because I know the bicycle community can be quite rabid on this very issue.
There are a lot of interested parties on that for certain. Okay. If you're okay with those changes, I'm going to move on to the next one, which also had a change. I did note that you were specifically identifying in the Shannon Road project the desire for a roundabout at the Naranja-Shannon intersection. So I went ahead and replaced some language with the exact words that you had used in your revision to reflect that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm moving so fast. I'm not acknowledging questions. I saw that, Mr. Chair, that Mr. Bahi has his hand up.
Yes, I just saw that too. Jason?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's some overlap between Lambert and the Tangerine Road improvements. I was just wondering if there was coordination that occurred with the county and the Lambert Road improvements. Just curious. In the area, so I'm familiar with the area.
And I believe that there was initial coordination back quite some time ago. I think we need to reopen those. I put that Pecos Way language in there, and I think that's something that perhaps Carmen and I, and perhaps Catherine, need to sit down and talk about. So there might be a further refinement there.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for raising that question, Jason. And Paul, I would ask, reach out to Catherine on that and work through whatever alignment or coordination.
Will do. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll leave it highlighted so we know to circle back to it. Okay. Continuing on, South Camino del Oeste, Kai Torim to Valencia Road. This is Mr. Bahi's project. Are there any changes that we need to look at for that project? Okay. Hearing none, shall we continue on?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great.
There's already existing street lighting from Los Reales to Valencia. So the street lighting would mostly be from Los Reales south to Cayetoran, which is what you've covered. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, so moving on to Thornydale Road, Cortero Farms to Tangerine Road, 4-lane Roadway divided, continuous travel lanes, raised landscape median bike lanes in both directions, and ADA accessible sidewalks. Signalizations identified. Any questions, concerns, comments on this?
Jim, I do not have any.
Okay, great. All right, we will move on to La Villita, Sahuarita Road to Nogales Highway. And extend and improve La Villita Road from Sahuarita Road to Nogales Highway with bike lanes and ADA accessible sidewalk. And I know Beth was on earlier. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay. All right, very good. Then we'll continue on. Drexel Road, Midvale Park Road to Calle Santa Cruz. I believe we had some comments on this from Patrick and others. So we're not referring to it any longer as a two-lane roadway or two-lane bridge. And we have added some signalization and corrected the, or we have the correct amount, 2.5 million of it will have already been spent. So on the design on that, I don't know that that needs to necessarily be changed in the language unless people feel that we need to tie it only to expenditures after the ballot or after the election.
And if I could just add something, I think this is a good example where I think we've tried to spell out what modernized might mean. I think in the past we've talked about modernizing this corridor, but you can see here we've actually put a finer point on that in terms of what will actually be built. In terms of the bridge itself, so right now, Patrick, I always get this messed up, but I think right now we're planning to build 2 lanes on Drexel. But there's also been acknowledgement that in the future, especially if ADOT decides to rebuild or build the Drexel TI, if there's a desire, in 15, 20, probably 10, 15 years from now, if we wanted to widen Drexel to 4, we might think about how we could get that 4-lane bridge structure built now, stripe it for 2 lanes, and have that flexibility for the future. So, and I don't know, Patrick, if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. The way it's designed right now, just to have continuity in the corridors, is a 3-lane structure. So we're carrying a center turn lane, obviously, without the need to make left turns on a bridge, and wider shoulders, which would give us enough deck space in the future if we wanted to go to 4. The only other thing I'd add is we kept it general at the intersection. I think there's still, if we want to consider alternative intersection configurations at like Calle Santa Cruz, so we didn't specify signalization. It's currently stop controlled. Might be a good candidate for a roundabout. But we haven't gotten there in the design process, so we just kept it as a general language around upgrading the intersections.
That's good for all of us to be looking at in terms of trying to retain flexibility if things do change, particularly over 20 years. All right, if there are no other comments on that, we'll move on to Drexel Road, Mission Road to Midvale Park Road. Reconstruct, and I could probably take out and modernize if we chose to, the existing roadway as a 3-lane roadway and provide a new all-weather crossing over the west branch of the Santa Cruz River. We have steered away from making any specific comments about what that structure might look like, only to say that it would be all-weather.
That's correct. And Jim, just a note on this, we are mentioning Mission Road, but actually Pima County right-of-way starts about a couple hundred feet to the east of Mission. So that intersection is actually within the county as well as that last little segment. So there might be some coordination on that project. I know the county's got a project to the west of here. So who does the work at Mission might be a discussion.
Okay, well, that is something. Something we'll figure out, and we need, because we definitely need to include the intersection on both those projects and what's needed there. So, okay. Yeah.
Sorry. The San Javier district is involved in that project as well at Mission Road. Sorry.
Out, Jason.
Jim, Mr. Chair, in the RTA plan, we do call out all-weather access, drivable in all-weather conditions. I'm not sure if that language should be considered here as well.
Drivable in all conditions.
I think it is. Actually, it looks like it does look like it's mentioned in the benefits section below, so maybe it doesn't need to be.
It's also in the first paragraph. Construct new all-weather crossing over the West Branch.
Missed that. My apologies.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? If not, I'm moving. We will go down to project number 10, Valencia Road, Mission Road to Camino de Oeste. Widen existing roadway to a 6th. Okay. This says 6th lane. I know in other portions of Mission Road, or no, this is Valencia. I apologize. Widen to a 6-lane divided roadway, Mission Road to Camino de Oeste. That's a 4-lane road today. Construct or relocate bus pullouts and bus shelters. Upgrade the traffic control infrastructure at the intersections with Mission, Cardinal, Camino de la Tierra, and Camino de Oeste. Any comments on that one?
Jason here. So the current Pima County project is already addressing Mission Road, Cardinal, and Camino de la Tierra. So this segment from Camino de la Tierra to Camino de Oeste would be, I guess, the revised scope. So I'm not sure why you're including the segment from Mission to Camino de la Tierra.
In terms of the intersection improvements, or?
Well, so isn't the Pima County project already addressing intersection improvements at Mission, Cardinal, and Camino de la Tierra?
I would have to yield to the county on that one. Let me see here. I know this is a period 1 and 2 project. So
yeah, so Jim and Jason, right? This is the full project, right? So I think that as it's presented here, that's accurate, right? I mean, so this is the project that we're currently working on.
Yeah, you have a CMAR on board to do Mission to Camino de la Tierra.
So I would say, Jim, go ahead and get with the county team. I also have gotten a note from our folks indicating this doesn't reflect some of the other comments that we provided in, and that may have been an oversight, or maybe it's just timing wise. So if you can check with the team and look at the input that they provided and address Jason's question, as well as making sure that the requested modifications submitted by the county staff are incorporated on this, or any others where it might not be fully incorporated yet.
yeah, thank you for that. I have noted that there are situations where, well, we've had a lot of hands on these documents, so we need to go back and check through them and make sure that there's things that nothing fell through the cracks. So thank you for calling that out. We'll definitely take another look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Continuing on down, Tangerine Road, I-10 traffic interchange. Looking at, let's see. We are still looking at implementation period 2 on that, and $25 million of RTA funding, along with $160 million of anticipated funding from ADOT. Looking at new grade separated crossing with the UPRR, on-ramps and off-ramps for westbound and eastbound I-10, connections to the eastbound and westbound frontage roads, and additional lanes on Tangerine Road with signalization at the ramp frontage road intersections. We also note that project will include any necessary modifications to CMID infrastructure as well as drainage, pedestrian, and bicycle improvements. Anything that we are missing needs to be added or changed?
I don't see anything, Jim.
Okay, great. Any other comments? If not, we will move on. Pima Mine Road, Interstate 19 to Nogales Highway. Modernize. I think we'll change that to reconstruct unless there's objection.
That's fine.
Okay. Any other comments that we need to change on that? And I know we'll have to do some work on the formatting on this, as well as others as well. We know we need to get back into that.
Yeah, no, this looks great. The description minus modernize.
Okay. All righty. Then anything else? If not, we're moving on to Drexel, Calle Santa Cruz to 12th Avenue. And that is another modernize that will become reconstruct. Drexel between Calle Santa Cruz and 12th Avenue. So that includes work on either side of the interstate. Let's see. Protected or buffered bicycle lanes in both directions, and ADA accessible sidewalks on or pass. Not exclude the consideration of. We may want to revisit. I'm not sure that language works. Is there any? Perhaps Sam and Patrick, you could identify or clarify, what we might do to that.
Patrick, why don't you go first?
Yeah, and the intent again was here to provide that flexibility. We know that this segment of roadway is kind of the connection between what the improvements were on the west side of 19 and those on the east side. We heard a lot of comments from the public about lack of bike and pedestrian access over the freeway. So we were looking at options for addressing that. And we want to include the option of potentially a standalone bike and pedestrian bridge parallel to the existing road bridge over I-19. I think it's 30 feet wide, so we really can't accommodate everything on it.
Okay, so
Jim, can I add a comment before you go? I kind of figured that's what it was, and what I would suggest is let's take it from a negative and turn it to a positive and say include the consideration or include the option for a separate bike and pedestrian bridge over I-19, just to provide flexibility.
That was where I would have gone as well. So thank you for that. I will, right now, I'm tentatively going to just strike out, not exclude and then we'll see where it goes from there.
And this was the exact language I was talking about earlier. This is really good the way that it's been delineated.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? If not, we're moving on to Drexel South 12th to Country Club. The next section of Drexel. Reconstruct and modernize. So we'll just reconstruct. Drexel Road as a 3-lane roadway between South 12th and Country Club Road. Provide continuous left turn or raised medians, pedestrian refuge islands or refuge islands, as well as employing other access control strategies. Reconstruct, rehabilitate the pavement, buffered bike lanes in both direction, buffered or protected, ADA accessible sidewalks and paths, hawks, continuous lighting. By the way, are we looking at continuous lighting up and down the entire Drexel corridor? And if so, I'll probably want to amend that to add add lighting to all of the Drexel corridor projects.
Yeah, Jim, all of our projects include lighting with the exception of La Cholla. I think that's something we'd want to evaluate in that particular circumstance.
Okay, so that all City of Tucson projects will have lighting?
Correct.
I've got a couple of hands up. Let me go Sam and then Paul.
Thanks, Carmine. Jim, I've noticed a couple times where we say reconstruct / rehabilitate pavement. And I'm guessing that's because we decide whether it needs to be completely rebuilt or mill and overlay, depending on the condition of the pavement at the time. Is there a better way to just say that doesn't have that slash? I mean, for me, it just looks a little clunky, and I don't know if we can just say, rehabilitate pavement with appropriate treatment at the time of construction or something like that.
Yeah, we could do that, or just take the slash out and put in an or.
Sure.
Okay. Yep, I'm all for taking out clunky.
Paul?
Just a quick question. What's the difference between a hawk and a bike hawk? I'm not familiar with the bike hawks.
Can you take that one, Sam? Yeah, it's a treatment we innovated out in Tucson. So where we have bike facilities crossing major roadways, we put in street push button for bikes and the green ladder markings, and then additional notification that says, bikes wait, bikes go with pedestrians essentially, but working off of the existing hawk signals.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and I will replace the clunky slashes on reconstruct, rehabilitate, as well as upgrade / install bus stops as needed at the bottom of the paragraph. And I could probably do the same thing for and/or raised medians or refuge islands as well. So we will go ahead and do that, although I'll leave the and/or. Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on to Prince Road. We're looking at reconstruct Prince Road. I'll strike them and modernize as a 5-lane roadway between Romero and Campbell, and as a 3-lane roadway from Campbell to Country Club, adding continuous 2-way left turn lane and or raised medians or refuge islands. And we have the same reconstruct or rehabilitate pavement. And we have install hawks or bike hawks. Any questions, comments on that? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to Harrison Road, Golf Links Road to Irvington, widen Harrison to a 4-lane divided roadway between Golf Links Road and Irvington Road, reconstruct or rehabilitate the pavement, provide a raised median, provide protected or buffered bike lanes, continuous lighting, new or widened bridge on Pantano Wash, and drainage improvements to the length of the roadway, with accommodation of the Harrison Greenway. So that one, this is a little, or this one presupposes the existing Harrison Road Bridge, or the Harrison Road Bridge in RTA, or in the 2006 plan is existing, and it's either a parallel structure that goes into it or expanded it. So with that, Sam?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I was just going to mention pretty much what you just said. There might be value in just putting in the scope that it is intended to connect and complement the 2-lane bridge that's going to be completed as part of the 2006 plan. I think the idea is that we're going to build that bridge with the intent of this whole area being widened to 4 lanes in the future. So anything we do with the Harrison Road Bridge project will be complementary to what is going to be built with this project. It's just a minor thing, just noting that it's going to be, the 2 projects are related, I guess.
Okay. And, what I'll do is I'll just, after provide new or widened bridge over Pantano Wash, complementing 2006 plan project, and then that way we've acknowledged it. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. Colossal Cave Road, Interstate 10 to Camino Loma Alta. Widen Colossal Cave Road to a 4-lane divided roadway between Interstate 10 and Camino Loma Alta. An alternative roadway alignment may be utilized to minimize impacts on historic and school properties in the area. This project includes railroad overpasses for both Union Pacific Railroad track alignments. And then talk about the protected or buffered bicycle lanes in both directions, ADA accessible sidewalks, hawks, other improvements, safety improvements as necessary, and street lighting as needed. So is the as needed something everybody's comfortable with, or that definitely a departure from the continuous that we have in other portions of the or at least in the city projects, and upgrade the intersections, and specifically identified of Marianne Cleveland Way, Camino Loma Alta, and Rancho del Lago. And then acknowledge that we need to either do a new or widened bridge over the Pantano Wash, which I can't say that we've looked at the Pantano Wash Bridge, whether there is, or perhaps the new or modified bridge. I would leave that to people who know more about it to describe it.
Yeah, Jim, I would just ask, as earlier, double check against the county submitted comments, but otherwise I don't have any adjustments now.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will check back and confirm with Catherine.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, we did just receive an email from Catherine, so we'll double check all those and make sure that all those track changes are shown so you can confirm the comments are included.
Yeah.
My apologies for that oversight.
Yeah, I know lots flying fast, so no worries.
On 18, Marianne Cleveland Way, Houghton Road to Colossal Cave Road, widen between Houghton and Colossal Cave to a 4-lane divided roadway, provide raised median, provide protected or buffered bike lanes in both directions, ADA accessible sidewalks and paths, hawks and bike hawks and necessary safety improvements as necessary. And this one has providing continuous lighting on the roadway. Upgrade intersection infrastructure within the project limits, including the terminus intersection at Houghton and Colossal Cave. And though the upgrades are kind of not described, I realize that we have these intersections listed in both projects in some cases. For instance, the Colossal Cave and Marianne Cleveland is identified in the earlier intersection or the earlier project. Comments or questions?
Jim, I think, as we've noted, right, just double checking against county comments, updating this with some of the conforming changes we've already talked about previously on the formatting of how the language is presented. And I think on this one, just making sure that we've got good continuity between the city section and the county section so that, we're, representing it accurately along the entire segment.
And Sam?
Thanks, Jim. I don't know where this is actually captured in terms of who the lead agency is on some of these projects. I know this one is split between the county and the city. So that's maybe just a question. And then, I know this is implementation periods 2 and 3. And it's unlikely that we would start construction before implementation period 2. But I'm curious to understand where we might outline the flexibility to start design work in period 1 for example, if let's say the county has some capacity to kickstart this project planning and design in that first period, so that way we can actually hit some construction timeframe in period 2, where would we build in that flexibility in the administrative code?
Sam, I think it's in the POPs is where we want to put that. And I know that with the 2006 plan, we definitely did accelerate projects by doing design IGAs early in the program. We had a lot of design IGAs in period 1 that were looking at projects in period 2 and beyond. I think notably Grant Road was one of them. So we started out with that as that was one of the first IGAs that was done for a periods 2 through 4 project. So.
Thanks, Jim.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Paul.
I think Sam brought up a really great point, and that would be the identification in here of who the lead agency is, the lead jurisdiction.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond to that, I know that in the original project descriptions for the RTA plan, for the 2006 plan, we actually had identified who the agencies were. One of the things that happened over time was we actually ended up having different agencies deliver projects because of capacity. So we did not tie ourselves, we actually ignored that to some extent, and through IGAs worked through who was going to be the lead agency on projects. I know there were instances where there were county projects being done in the city projects done in the county, and we also had annexations that took place, so which changed some of the ownership or at least who is leading the charge on some of the projects. So I deliberately left that out of the project descriptions, but we do touch upon it in the POPs. So I'd ask you to take a look at the POPs and see if it's covered adequately in there.
I think that's fair, Jim, and would ask that everyone take a look at the POPs, and if we need to refine language in there, to identify the point at which the agency would be identified, we can make some adjustments there. John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, remind me, when you talk about design IGAs, does that require that the sponsoring agency expend all the funds up front and then be reimbursed by the RTA? Because I think that's a limitation that we would try to work on if we can.
Mr. Bernal, no, we do not expect that we don't expect the local government to accelerate their investment on a project like that. We have had conversations with jurisdictions about, proportionately sharing in a start, if they wanted to move forward with something, that has happened. And I know with the 2006 plan, that took place on some projects where the jurisdiction was advancing a project that was not consistent with the scope, where they ended up spending money of their own money up front to make a case for why there was a need for a scope change. That's the only time I could think of an instance where the local government front-ended the cost of design.
So you're really saying that an agency could, select consulting engineers and advance the work, expecting the RTA to really be the one providing the funding, given that the local agency didn't budget it that particular year?
Yes. It can move forward.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If there's nothing else on Mac Way, let's go on to Drexel Road, Cardinal Avenue to Mission Road, widened to 3-lane cross section. I think this is the last of our Mission or our Drexels. Widened to a 3-lane cross-section to provide continuous left turn lane from Cardinal Avenue to Mission Road, provide bicycle lanes in both directions and ADA accessible sidewalk. No mention, I mean, this is out in the county. I don't see a reference to street lighting, anything we need to look at on that. And I see Jason's hands up.
Is there any way to group all the Drexel Road projects together so it makes it easier for the voters to tie the entire segment together? I think the way it's broken up is kind of confusing.
Mr. Chair, part of the publicity pamphlet will include a map. So the way that the projects are listed in the RTA Next, we already have them listed in a certain format, but we will have a map of the projects to make that helpful to distinguish the projects.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, I don't have any further feedback on this. Reflects the changes that were submitted by. Actually, it looks a little bit different. It says the same things, just in a different way. Maybe just again double check that. Our input says reconstruct a 3-lane roadway with bicycle transit, pedestrian drainage, and intersection improvements.
With your team, and I do recall now that there were a number of places where we had widen replaced with reconstruct. That's yeah. We'll work with your team on that. Thank you for calling that out.
Yep, thanks.
Mr. Chair, this is Dan again. Just wanted to acknowledge the time and that we still do have quite a few projects to go, but also that we have committed to going back and checking to make sure that we will address the comments received and follow up with those and track changes in the revised version. Just a reminder, we do have, that was sent out per request, a timeline of other activities to consider as part of the next agenda item. At your discretion, we could discuss that at any time or continue with this further.
Let me check with the group. You want to continue to go through these? I think we've seen a pretty wide swath of them. I think that we've noted some of the broader language change and formatting adjustment type of items. Do we want to shift over and talk about timeline and maybe even touch maybe high level on administrative code and allow the RTA staff to get with the jurisdictional team to continue to refine, and then we'll see a full track change document back, or do you want to keep on this? So let me go Sam and then Paul.
I think Paul's hand was up first. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Sam. I'd vote that we go to the timeline because there were two different ways of which to review this that were kind of proposed. And I do think we do need to get our arms around. Are we going to continue to go page by page, week by week, or do we want to get together with some type of a day or 2 day workshop?
Fair enough. Thanks, Paul. Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Carmine. I was just going to mention that. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on the projects. Probably don't need to go through all of them exhaustively. But at some point, I hope we would dedicate one of these meetings to just talking about some of the other elements in the plan, particularly transit. I know that's probably coming at some point. I might suggest we spend one meeting only talking about the transit element and how that's going to be carved up. And then I know there's other elements as well, like the active and transportation projects. Those probably will be easier conversations, but I just think we got to spend a little bit of time fleshing out the rest of the elements beyond just the roadway. So that's my ask. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Paul?
Yeah, just to echo that. I have some issues on the pavement reconstruction as well. So I agree with Sam. I think we need to dedicate some time to the other elements.
Okay. So let's go ahead and shift off of the project descriptions. Jim, Dan, I think you can follow up with jurisdictional representatives and make any updates on that. And let's go over to the timeline. And I think the comments that we just heard from Sam and Paul, we can look at how those other element discussions might be weaved into the overall schedule.
Karen, thank you all for your comments. Issa, if you can pull up the timeline, I could then turn it over to Adam to walk us through those two options. And we would be happy to receive your feedback on how you'd like to move forward with that.
Thanks, Dan. Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, this was based on a request for PAG staff to provide a timeline. These recommendations are designed to highlight topics we suspect or already know will require conversations. We definitely have a note now about transit being a meeting, pavement reconstruction, and the other elements. And this is all flexible, subject to the will of the committee. Secondarily, we wanted to set some expectations around time constraints and the order of events so that we all know how to prioritize our homework in preparation for the next session. And then finally, we wanted to call out that there are more mundane passages of these documents that PAG staff can probably just workshop and provide en masse to the committee. And having that said, basically it's broken out. Target date for completing the work of this subcommittee we set for 10/31/25. The reasoning behind that is that only gives us about 3 weeks to go through, make those minor edits, formatting changes, run it through legal review, and have that ready for the December 4th board meeting for approval. Secondarily, similar to the way that we requested comments for this, we're looking to address the specific aspects of both documents that either didn't work for RTA 1, need to customize for RTA Next, or need to change for any other reason. And with that, the two options that we've provided here, again, it's whether you want to eat the whole elephant or you want to eat it a bite at a time. So the option 1 just really details out all the rest of the Wednesdays that are available to us. We built in a couple of flex dates. It sounds like one, the recommendation is already to slate that for a transit section. Maybe the other is the remaining elements in pavement rehabilitation. And option 2, we just suggested that we pick a day like October 1st for a full day workshop. That could be a 2-day workshop at the pleasure of the board or at the pleasure of the committee. And then maybe some remaining Wednesdays for kind of catch-all, anything that didn't get requested. If there were to be a 2-day workshop, then that probably would cover the rest of those Wednesday meetings. I'd still recommend that we do leave 1 or 2 dates open, and especially that October 29th, so that there's one last day to finalize these. With that, happy to help facilitate any conversation around this, but that's the gist of the recommendation.
Thank you, Adam. And Mr. Chair, if I could just add one more thing real quick. This is also aligned with us receiving comments to the POPs today. And I know that's a significant and important piece of this discussion. So if any of the jurisdictions need additional time for that, we could certainly accommodate that. But just pointing that out that we might have to adjust slightly for that. And a couple of other notes is that next Wednesday, the 17th, we currently have a TPC scheduled. We could adjust as needed. But if there are if there's a request for additional time for review for the POPs, we could potentially keep the TPC and then skip to the next week per the schedule. Also want to confirm if there's availability September 24th, that is the start of Roads and Streets, but it doesn't start until the afternoon. So just want to make sure that that's okay. And also for October, the week of the October 8th, our understanding is that's fall break for some. And so if some are taking that off to be with children or whatnot, just wanted to point those few things out. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Adam. Feedback from the group on the two options, and then whether additional time is needed on review comments on POPs. Paul?
My thoughts on this, every week, 2 hours, a 2 hour bite every week, is not going to give us the same juice as maybe 2 days of getting together.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. Sam?
Well, not to complicate it, but I was thinking the opposite, that the 2 hour chunks are a little bit more manageable. My concern about a full day or 2 full days is we start to run out of steam, and also it doesn't really give time for you know, the staff to take the comments, make the changes, bring them back. Sort of all has to happen on the fly. Um, that being said, I will, whatever the full group decides is best, the city of Tucson will commit to having somebody, even if it's not, specifically me. We'll have folks in the room available to participate in the conversation. And I think there was one other thing, but I forgot. If I think of it, I'll raise my hand. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to call on a couple other people. One thought is that, we've been trying to keep these contained to 2 hours. We can stretch it to 3 hours if we're going to go with the weekly cadence and try to meet from 8:30 to 11:30 to pack a little more time in there to get to some of the detailed discussion. But let me go to Bill and then Beth.
I tend to agree with Sam. A full day going over stuff like this, I think you tend to break down after a while. But I was going to suggest that maybe we go to half days, and get like, multiple half days where you plug the whole morning in, and by the end of the morning you're just dead, but you got a lot accomplished. That's all my thought.
Thanks, Bill. Beth?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as Bill, actually, that maybe it's a meet in the middle, that we do the half day, because to Sam's point, that it's hard for staff to kind of make all those changes and then kind of get back to us if we did a half day or, 2 half days in a row kind of thing, that we could get all the changes back to everybody and take a look at them and prevent that burnout. And I think it's also better given all the people in the room for making sure that the most number of people can attend. Finding everybody in this room, to be able to give a full day, that I think that'd be really hard. So just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Okay. Let me go to Sam and then would like to hear Fausto and Jason from you afterwards. So Sam?
Thanks, Carmen. I remember what I was going to say is I really liked this virtual format. I know a lot of times I prefer to meet in person, but just because of the nature of what we're doing, I really like being able to see on the screen really clearly. And also I've got my screens here that I'm kind of going back and forth. So I think just in terms of logistics and facilitating these, it's probably going to be easier to get us all together if we keep doing it virtual. I don't know if that decision was made previously, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
Super. Thanks, Sam. How about Fausto? Jason, you have preferences?
Carmine, I'm relatively flexible for this. Obviously, for all of us, it's challenging to give up any time during our days, but this is definitely first and foremost. As far as preferences, I'm leaning more towards the smaller bites as we've been doing. So the 2 to 3 hour meetings, maybe up to a half day if we want to do some type of workshop along those lines, works for me. So.
Thank you for that, Fausto. Jason?
Yeah, I'm open to a half a day meeting. I think whatever the group decides, we're planning for a $2.6 million package, and we have a very limited time frame to get all that information out to the board. So I think whatever a time frame gets us to that point, then I think we all need to make time to make that happen. Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I mentioned the full day only just given the two alternatives that were presented here. I'm down for the half day as well. I just think 2 hours a week for the next 5 weeks is just not the amount of time that's going to be able to get us past the goal line. So, yeah, half days are good by me as well.
Okay. So Dan or Adam, in terms of the feedback that you heard, I think, going with the smaller bites seems to be the overall preference, but then looking for opportunities to factor in for maybe some half-day sessions. And, I'm comfortable if we were to expand out the meeting time that we have weekly, right? And maybe planning for the next, two meetings, the September 17th, and I suggest we meet on September 24th. I understand Roads and Streets kicks off that day, but if that's an afternoon start, I think we can, get folks through this and there easily enough. And so would suggest that maybe we plan for 8:30 to 11:30 for our weekly meetings, and then ask you to come back at our next meeting and give us a recommendation on where you could see some targeted topical half-day sessions, right? I don't want to do it just to do it, but if there's content that we need to focus, a little longer session around, then, we can look to convert any of those weekly meetings into a half-day session is sort of my thinking. But let me see. Paul has his hand up, or any other thoughts from the group.
So Carmine, would it be beneficial if we all jotted down and maybe submitted to you or to Dan, what are our concerns here? We've all had a chance to read through the material, and instead of just mechanically going through page by page, if we do indeed have concerns, maybe we focus on those instead.
Interject for a second. This is Adam.
Yeah.
One thing is we recognize that we have not yet received all of the comments, and it sounds like a couple of jurisdictions wanted to have until the end of the week. I think we always had in our mind that the topics by day were somewhat flexible and conditional upon the complexity and the volume of those comments that we received from the jurisdictions. So I think if the group is okay with it, I'd love to take a second pass at this and kind of do a tighten up with all the information that's been discussed so far, putting in the 3 hours, adding the additional dates, adding the additional topics, and then also just giving us a chance to review what those comments are and potentially reconfigure based on what those needs are. Happy to entertain some discussion now, of course. Don't want to take over the meeting, but I think we know that that's an exercise ongoing, and we would be a lot more informed maybe at the beginning of next week.
Yeah, Adam, I appreciate that suggestion. It sounds reasonable to me that, based on what you heard, you would update, bring back. I think Paul's suggestion that we really drill down to the topical areas. I mean, today was a good example of that. And I agree that having started looking in detail at every one of those project descriptions was important for us to do. And I think we all got a sense and saw a pattern developing that enabled us to then say, okay, we're comfortable now. I think that's the greatest element of this, is that we all have a degree of comfort that we're giving the attention that is needed to this, and that we don't find out down the road that we overlook something important. And so maybe with these topics, we start out with the intent of going slower, but then accelerate, or as Paul I identified, if we were to each delineate those areas, as you heard today, right, wanting to have longer discussions on the non-roadway elements, particularly in the area of transit, we can then tailor the schedule to doing that. So, would appreciate any additional thoughts maybe to impart to the RTA staff on how to come, to a modification of the schedule.
So Dan, we are flexible to adjust this on a weekly basis, of course. And as Adam mentioned, we could make the change suggested today to start increasing to a 3-hour meeting on a weekly basis. We have identified October 1st as a potentially longer, maybe half-day meeting to wrap up some important comments there. And one other thing that we do intend to do as part of Paul's comments, with the upcoming POPs comments, we're looking at creating a comment resolution matrix companion document to the track changes. And with that, we could identify the A's, these comments are addressed, the B's, these are comments that are addressed with minor changes, and the C's that probably we should focus our attention on for discussion, something like that, to help streamline our coordination efforts in these meetings, if that's appropriate. And we could consider something like that for each of the other sections as well as we drill down.
Appreciate that, Dan. Any thoughts or suggestions back to Dan and the team? Does that sound good to the group? Okay, seeing some head nods and thumbs up. I do. Oh, Beth.
Sorry, just saying it sounded good.
Okay. I do want to, also just circle back to something we had talked about at the conclusion of the last meeting, during the meeting, and then at the end, is that we want to make sure that we set aside time to go back over the input, the policy related input given from the TMC members. There's a matrix of that that's been put together, and I don't see that jumping out at me off of the schedule topics, but want to keep focused on that we don't get through this exercise and realize we forgot to go back and look at the jurisdictional and the non-jurisdictional member input from TMC.
A really important reminder, and what we could do as part of the capturing all of the policy subcommittee POPs comments in that comment matrix, we could also include those comments there as well and highlight those to make sure that we're not missing out on those.
That'd be great. Appreciate that.
Happy to do that.
All right.
Two things I did want to confirm, Mr. Chair, before we move on. Sam had mentioned the idea of continuing a virtual format. Is that something that you and the others would like to see? A hybrid, in person? Any preferences on that moving forward?
Yeah, I'm okay accommodating the virtual format if that's the preference of the group. Works just fine.
I agree. I think it's easier to get us all together that way.
Okay.
Okay,
I like the virtual format as well. Thank you.
Okay, let's plan on that, Dan.
As mentioned, we want to make sure that we gave adequate time for everyone to comment on the POPs, but just wanted to confirm we did last week mention getting comments in today. Is today going to be enough time for everyone to submit POPs comments, or do we need to give a little bit more time?
And it sounds like we have jurisdictions that have already made a request to extend that to the end of the week, and I think that is appropriate. I'd rather give the individuals time to give us substantive feedback rather than having them provide less detailed input by the end of the day today.
Thank you.
Bill has a hand up. Bill?
Being the new guy in this, the Kurt Lewis Jr., I have not seen the POPs. Obviously, I have not had a chance to look at them. But one other question. So calendar-wise, is this an every Wednesday?
This is certainly as proposed in the timeline.
Okay, I'll get it on my calendar. Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, do you have a preference on when we should delay the comments deadline to?
Dan, I would give to the end of the week and cut it off there.
Okay, we could certainly do that. With that, It may be slightly challenging for us to have the comment matrix and everything prepared for the 17th. We're certainly going to try. But with that, we could perhaps go over what is ready at that time, or we could have a backup discussion based on some of the other comments. We mentioned transit, we mentioned pavement. We could perhaps dig into some of the other sections so that we have adequate time to prepare for that discussion, and we could potentially defer the comment resolution to the 24th or the 1st if it bleeds into that, if that's acceptable.
So Dan, let me go to a few members' hands shut up. I've got Jason, and then I'll go John and Paul.
I was just curious as to how this information is going to be distributed to the website, because obviously we have to have a public outreach as related to the plan, and as we move along with these discussions, are we going to when is it going to be made public onto the website? I know the PIOs are having meetings and whatnot, and I just wanted to know how these meetings and the PIO meetings are going to be working together. Thank you.
That, if you'd like, as we develop materials and send them out, we get them on the website typically that day or the next. So any materials that we share, we post as part of our blog on our website with the meeting agenda and materials. So all of our comments and things of that nature will be publicly available.
Thanks,
we
Dan.
typically put draft on all of our documents to make sure that the public is aware that these are ongoing discussions.
Let's go to John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I only have a hard copy of the POPs. Can we get a Word format version of them sent, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Dan, along those lines, if I could ask, could you please add Catherine Skinner to the distribution list so that she's getting that at the same time that I'm receiving it?
Yes, sir. She has been added to the contact list and will continue to get emails in the future.
Okay, super. Thanks. Let me go. We had Paul, and then Sam has a hand up too.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So two things. One, with the POPs are buried inside the administrative code, but there's a section in the administrative code that's kind of codey all on its own. That's the pages 69 through 76. I'd look at kind of combining the POPs in that section as one effort because it's all kind of procedural code type of language, and maybe that administrative code gets folded into the POPs. That's one thing. The other thing I see as a big lift with the administrative code, and we kind of touched on this earlier today, and that's that history section on the front end. And then, of course, all the RTA plans revisions that we talked about today. Who's spearheading that? That whole history that's on the front end of the administrative code has little to no bearing as to what we're doing today. But certainly the reason why we're rolling over projects and trying to make things as palatable to the public for a successful vote. That's, I think, an important aspect of our current history. So is that staff? Is that PAG RTA staff that's taking the lead on that, trying to fix all that area? And what's your ETA on that, and when can we get a chance to take and review and discuss?
So Dan, I'm seeing some head nods in the room there amongst your staff. Can you just speak to that briefly?
Yes. So to respond to the Mr. Vice Chair, we are working on that internally on updating those sections. One important thing, though, is that those sections also will have some updates after March. So we can certainly update as needed, but with the the caveat of that, we'll have to go back and make some updates later on after March to recognize the public outreach efforts and final decisions as well.
Understood.
And Dan, can you maybe in the team take a look at the other suggestion Paul made, that in addition to the POPs in its entirety, the other policy related sections that he mentioned, within the administrative code, is there a way to look at those in tandem to help focus and achieve the outcome that we're seeking?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to do that and follow up on that in our next meeting.
Excellent. All right. I see Sam.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, and Patrick had to hop off, but if you could also add Patrick Hartley to the distribution list for the material. Patrick is our backup to the backup. So when Andy can't be here, Patrick will be our backup.
Will do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So let me just ask anything for the good of the order before we wrap up today. Paul?
Maybe one last thing. Too, I know comments are coming in fast and furious, and you'll be putting a matrix together, but maybe sharing those comments amongst the group, like the comments I sent out last night. I might be way off base. And I would appreciate the input of the group on if they have, strong feelings one way or the other. And, it'll help us focus. And instead of us all kind of working in our own little silos to see the thinking patterns of everybody else.
Mr. Chair, I could respond if you'd like.
Please.
We'd be happy to share your comments with the group, Paul, just with the understanding that per open meeting laws, we wouldn't be able to have a behind the scenes discussion. We could bring that forth again, the next agenda item to follow up, but at least share that in advance so everyone could review that if you'd like.
No, that would be great. And I'm curious to see what everybody else is saying.
All right. Dan, anything else from the team's perspective?
Looking around the room at the team, anything else for today? I think we're good, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate all the work the staff is putting in. Appreciate the members of the subcommittee and their diligence and commitment to moving through quite a lot of material. So thanks, everybody. And hearing no objections, the meeting stands adjourned.
Hey.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.